Controversy tonight for President Donald Trump, who has been no stranger to controversy during his first 4 weeks in office.
Trump tweeted today that the fake news media is the enemy of the American people. KCAL 9 political reporter Bryan joins us now with the blowback from the president's latest social media rant.
Yeah, the president was in the Carolinas today, where he appeared at an event at a Boeing plant and talked about jobs. But it wasn't that speech that caused all the controversy. One of the foundations of a democracy is a free and strong news media. That doesn't mean the media shouldn't be criticized, but some critics charge this time Mr. Trump went too far. And while Donald Trump has never shied away from criticizing the press, today's tweet represents a major escalation in his war of words with the news media.
Unfortunately, much of the media in Washington, D.C., along with New York, Los Angeles in particular, speaks not for the people, but for the special interests, because the press, honestly, is out of control. The level of dishonesty is out of control.
If you thought President Trump was a little over the top in his harsh criticism of the dishonest and out-of-control news media at his news conference this week, it was just a warm-up act for the smackdown that came on Friday, when he responded to mainstream coverage of his Thursday news conference with a Twitter tirade after complimenting conservative radio talk show host Rush Limbaugh's coverage. The fake news media, he tweeted, failing New York Times, NBC News, ABC, CBS, CNN, is not my enemy. It is the enemy of the American people.
To leave office before my term is completed is abhorrent to every instinct in my body.
And while other presidents like Richard Nixon have had their enemies lists and clashes with the news media, none of them in the modern era publicly accuse the media of being an enemy of the American people.
He's using enemy, a word that Richard Nixon used, but in private.
John Dickerson is the CBS News political director.
The media is a good punching bag, but it also is a protected American institution, and it was the free press that reported that his national security advisor Michael Flynn hadn't told the truth.
Joel Bellman is a board member of the L.A. chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists.
It's not something we've ever seen in this country to this extent. And frankly, it's not something I think most of us ever would have dreamed we would see.
He says President Trump's demonization of the news media could be dangerous.
The whole notion of a free press is being cast as antithetical to democratic values and the interests of the American people. And that's untrue and wrong and potentially dangerous, and certainly does, fall into line with, what we've seen from authoritarian regimes and dictators and demagogues throughout history.
I'm not a great fan of daily tweets.
Republican Senate Leader Mitch McConnell, reacting to the president's ramped-up rhetoric, says he'd prefer to see Mr. Trump stay on message.
I like what he's doing. I've not been a fan of the extra discussion that he likes to engage in, but we're going to soldier on.
But USC Annenberg School of Communication and Journalism professor Dan Schnurr says Trump is appealing to his core supporters.
Most people who voted for Donald Trump don't like the mainstream news media, and they cheered him all campaign long when he criticized the press. So now that he's defensive, now that he's beleaguered, now that he's been facing a steady stream of bad stories, President Trump is going back to the approach that worked so well for candidate Trump.
Well, and by the way, it was 1972 when then-President Richard Nixon told his national security advisor, Henry Kissinger, that the press is the enemy. He did it in private, though. And today, one of the journalists who broke the Watergate scandal, which led to Nixon's demise, Carl Bernstein, told a reporter that Trump's tweet demonstrates an authoritarian attitude and may be more insidious and dangerous than Nixon's attacks on the press. Lena, Jeff.